Tonight on America's Hope, we focus on the relationship between America and Israel and how pivotal it is for finding peace in the Middle East. America's Hope starts now. From the NTD Global Headquarters in New York, I'm Kelly Wright, and this is America's Hope. Thank you for joining us this hour. We do hope that you're safe and well, taking care of yourself and your family because you matter. You know, family is a really broad term in terms of bringing the people closer together in your family, taking care of each other. It's kind of the same way geopolitically when you think about it. The United States and its allies actually act as family, looking out for one another. One of the most important relationships that America has is with its strongest ally in the Middle East, Israel. And that relationship, that familial bond between Israel and America, is always tested, particularly now. We're going to talk to Troy Miller, president of the NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters, and then later we'll be talking to Daniella Bloom, who is a licensed psychotherapist who is focusing on how Jewish people are leaving the Democrat Party. We'll hear from both of them tonight on why the relationship between Israel and America matters. Let's get started. Thank you for joining us on America's Hope. I'm joined by my guest, Troy Miller. He is the president and CEO of the National Religious Broadcasters, and that's an organization that's been around for many, many years. And Troy, it's good of you to join us on America's Hope. Look, you are in New York. You've been visiting in New York City to talk to the Jerusalem prayer event that's been going on, and you actually spoke there on behalf of the many national religious broadcasters throughout America. Can you tell us what you discussed?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me today. Yeah, the Jerusalem Prayer Breakfast is an event that brings Christians and Jewish leaders together. In this case, of course, with all that's going on in Israel, we're there to show solidarity and support for Israel and to talk about, all the issues that are really Israel's facing, especially in the communications media arena. So I spoke on the weaponization of social media. As you know, Kelly, there's just a number of things going on there. There's a lot of influencers out there, and there's a lot of paid influencers by these far left progressive organizations that have really come out to, just smear Israel and all that Israel's doing with this war, when this war was not started by Israel. It was started by the Hamas terrorist organization on October 7th, and we're coming up on that anniversary, when they launched this unprecedented attack into Israel and on Israel civilians, mostly, and there are still over 100 hostages being held and 3 Americans. So we talked about this weaponization that's going on in social media.
The response that you received, what was that?
Really good. What we talked about was, look, it's conservative media and it's Christian media and Christian communicators that have really stepped up to get the truth out of what's going on in Israel and what's going on between the relationships with all of the anti-Semitism that we see around the world, and specifically in this country. And the Jewish people really feel that isolation. They realize that, especially those that were on the left, realize that they've been abandoned by their left progressive friends for this whole move to Palestine, move to radical Islamic Islam. And so our message was to them, you're not alone. Christian communicators are out there. Conservative networks like yours are bringing this message to the forefront. We're not going to forget about you, and we're praying for you every day.
So what is it you want America to know about the important nature of getting it right in terms of what's happening with Israel and the fact that Israel does have a right to defend itself against these terrorist organizations?
Could you imagine if you or I lived every day with our families with the threat of rocket attacks, and your children would just go out and play in the yard, and you'd have to be there listening for sirens to hurry up and get them into the bomb shelter in your house? That's just crazy. And what we want people to understand is that not only does Israel, and especially Christian, understand Israel has a biblical right to this land, it's actually the only nation that's been recognized by the United Nations for this land, and they do have the right to defend it, and we are supporting them in that right as Christians and Christian communicators.
Troy, let me ask you, are there concerns about what could happen here in America this year on our college campuses with regard to the anti-Semitic patterns of protests that we saw last year on college campuses, wherein some were actually shouting or chanting death to Israel and death to America?
Yeah, and they were shouting death to Israel, death to America, death to Christians. They understand that Christian evangelicals are in America are Israel's biggest supporters. And look, we saw that as colleges started up back in the school right away. They started up with these protests, and we're still seeing these protests. My understanding there was a protest at Columbia University here in New York just recently that went on. But look, Kelly, it's a deeper issue that's going on here on the college campuses because this anti-Israel kind of sentiment that's settled in, and even worse on the other side, this pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas sentiment that's gotten into people goes back to all of this indoctrination that's gone on through our school systems over the last several decades. That's really boiled everybody down with this critical race theory and other ideologies like this. That there are only two people in the world: there are oppressors and there are the oppressed. And that's the only two things that matter, that as if global politics and society were that simple. But that's what they boiled it down to. And Israel has been labeled the oppressor, even though the Jewish people have been some of the most oppressed people over the last several centuries in the world. And you know, and I know that these people couldn't carry their signs, gays for Hamas in Gaza. They wouldn't last a minute in Gaza. So it's very perplexing, but it all boils down to this whole idea that this conflict in society is all about oppressed and oppressors.
You know, Troy, in addition to your being there representing the NRB, the National Religious Broadcasters, there were also various members of Congress, which means that members of Congress showed up, most likely from the conservative bloc. What do you recall those members of Congress actually stating or saying about the conditions on the ground in Israel and the positioning that America should take in terms of supporting our strongest ally in the Middle East?
Look, as you said, we had several members, congressional delegates here this last 2 days, and the delegates over here who had unequivocal support for Israel. There are two bills that are working its way through the Congress right now. It's already passed the House. There's an anti-Semitism bill that's working through. We just need the Senate to take that bill up. And imagine Chuck Schumer, the highest ranking Jewish person in Congress, the highest ranking Jewish official in Congress, won't take up an anti-Semitism bill during this session right now. And so that was really sad. We heard about that, but we heard that there is still a lot of support for Israel, and that Congress is working hard to make sure that America does not step back and doesn't abandon Israel. And we're looking at this whole idea of a two-state solution, because how can you have a two-state solution when one of those groups who wants to be a state, they have a one-state solution, and that's their state and the elimination of Israel.
Hi, everybody. I hope you're enjoying this episode so far of America's Hope. If you'd like to see it in its entirety, just click on the link below. Thanks for watching.